I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. It is Monday, the 13th day of February, 2023. Clive Welsh here, inviting you to join me for the reading of our devotional thought for today. And it's being read from the devotional book entitled Truth for Life, 365 Daily Devotions, the second edition, by Pastor Alistair Begg. Today's devotional thought is entitled, For the Sake of the Gospel. And the verses today, Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 and 13, and it reads, I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. That's Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 and 13. Alistair Begg writes, Follow Paul through Acts and he leaves you breathless. He's constantly on the move, going from place to place. One moment he's stitching tents together, then he's bringing Epicurus back to life, and then he survives a snake bite and heals the sick on Malta. It's almost as if you can't imagine ever being able to keep up with him. Surely the worst thing that could ever happen to someone like Paul is to be stuck in one house for 2 years. But at the conclusion of Acts, that's exactly how we find him in Acts chapter 28, verses 30 and 31. You can just imagine the devil's response to Paul's imprisonment. Now I've shut him down. They'll get rid of him. He won't be able to go anywhere for a long while. He'll just shrivel up and die in prison. Not a chance. It was during Paul's imprisonment that he penned some of the most noteworthy letters under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, letters that God is still using to transform lives 2,000 years later. And, remarkably, the gospel advanced not only despite Paul's chain, but because of them. Paul was likely very different from other prisoners. The soldiers who guarded him would have probably said to one another, He is the most remarkable person we've ever had. We're used to people constantly cursing, screaming, agitating, and complaining. But this Paul has joy and purpose, and he just preaches. As a result of Paul's daily ministry among the soldiers, word began to spread throughout the entire palace guard. The reason this guy is a prisoner is because of Jesus Christ. That was the point. He's chained to us, he says, because he's chained to this man, Jesus Christ. And it appears that some of these guards not only heard the gospel, but responded to it, as they were then redeployed throughout the Roman Empire, arriving at their new post as new men. The gospel would advance to different places through them, and so Paul's imprisonment, which appeared to be diametrically opposed to the spread of the gospel, actually proved to be essential to it. You do not need to be a prisoner, a missionary, or an apostle to be used by God in spreading the gospel. Nor do you have to wait for all the circumstances in your life to line up just as you want them to before you talk about Jesus. Whether you are in prison, a hospital, an office, a field, or wherever and whatever you realize is or not, you are never far from someone who needs to hear the amazing story of God's grace. What are the situations you face that you naturally see are obstacles to sharing the gospel, and how might they in fact be opportunities? Who is the lost and longing people that God has placed in your life today? They need your God, and they might only meet Him through your loving boldness. That concludes our devotional thought for today, and truly, someone you will meet today needs to hear of the love of Jesus Christ, the forgiveness of God towards them, and the grace that abounds to them. Allow God to lovingly use you to be a bold witness for Christ today. And those of you reading through the Bible in a year, Isaiah chapter 60 and 61, as well as Mark's Gospel chapter 14, verses 1 through 26. Clive Walsh here. May the Lord richly bless you.